Well, today marks 2 years since Michigan's hands-free driving law went into effect. Research shows it is working to cut back on distracted driving. A recent survey done by Michigan State University found a 1.2 percentage point decrease in the number of drivers using handheld devices. Michigan has nearly 8 million licensed drivers, so that's 96,000 fewer people. Still, drivers under the age of 30 were about twice as likely to be on their cell phones compared to ages 30 to 59. To talk much more about the impact we are seeing from that law, we're joined by Steve Kiefer, the chairman and founder of the Kiefer Foundation, and Kevin Seiferheld, attorney at Michigan Auto Law. First of all, thank you so much for coming in here on Monday morning. The numbers speak for themselves that we do see a decrease, but it's a small percentage. And I know it's a lot of people when you look at the number of drivers, but I think both of you would like to see much more happening fairly soon.
Absolutely. We've been doing this all over the country, and generally when these laws go into place, we see about a 10 to 20% reduction in fatalities and crashes. So the Michigan data is very promising, but I think we're going to do much better in the years to come.
Yeah, and from a legal perspective, do you think the law has enough teeth, or do we need more?
We could always use more.
Okay.
We could always use no distracted driving whatsoever. We could always use a law that prevents any use of any type of devices. What we have here is a compromise, like most legislation, and it's a good compromise. As polarized as legislation is nowadays, this was a compromise. It was bipartisan, and essentially it eliminates use of phones with your hands.
Right.
So you can drive, you can use your phone, but it has to be mounted and it has to be set on a hands-free mode.
Right. I know you've told your story millions of times, but for those who haven't heard the background and what happened to Mitchell, can you kind of bring us up to speed?
Yeah, it was nearly 9 years ago. It was September 19th of 2016. It'll be 9 years this September that we lost Mitchell. And Mitchell was an amazing young man in his first month at Michigan State University, driving up on a beautiful Monday morning. He slowed down, and unfortunately, the young lady behind him did not. She was on Snapchat, and she rear-ended Mitchell at about 82 miles an hour, driving him into oncoming traffic on I-96. So as terrible as it is for us, we learn now that 120 people die every day in this country on the roads of the U.S., and we think about half of them are distracted. So we have a lot of work to do. We're proud of what we've done in Mitchell's memory. If you drive I-96, you'll see that stretch is named the Mitchell Kiefer Distracted Driver Awareness Highway, and of course we put guardrails in place that would have saved his life with the help of MDOT, and we'll just continue to do this work to save lives.
Speaking of that, I'm curious, what was it like for you and your family to make that transition from grief to honoring Mitchell to getting to a point now where you're trying to be proactive about it?
Yeah, it was obviously a very, very tough first month, and we had seen other people go through issues like this and have it destroy their lives, and we huddled as a family and just said, we can't let this destroy us. We have to do something in Mitchell's memory. Mitchell always said he wanted to change the world, so we said we're going to change the world in his memory. And it's really strange for me after 9 years that I can almost speak unemotionally about it, but believe me, it doesn't get much easier, and it still hurts every day when we miss Mitchell.
All right, so we talked about legislation and the need for maybe some more teeth in the law, and I know it's a polarized state capital, it's a polarized country.
Of course.
Do you think there is some political will to do some more, or do you think we're kind of where we're at and this is where we're going to be?
I think if we follow the law, if we continue to not text and drive, and we continue to enact the law, and we continue to enforce the law, I think we'll be okay. In the first 6 months of this law, it already reduced distracted driving and distracted driving accidents by 10%. And here we are in the second anniversary of the law, and it has already reduced crashes 23 times. So drivers are 12 times less likely to be in accidents when they're talking on the phone, and 23 times more likely to be in accidents when they're texting. So if we follow the law, and that's what's really important.
That's the if, right?
Especially this time of year where we're talking about the holiday season between Labor Day, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, that's when most crashes happen. That's when most fatalities happen. So if everybody follows the law and they and they do what they're supposed to do, we're hoping we'll have less crashes.
All right, so we're going to take a short break. We'll talk more about social media and teen driving, all that, but
Sure.
quickly take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to Local 4 Live. Back now with Steve Kiefer, founder and chairman of the Kiefer Foundation, and Kevin Seiferheld, attorney at Michigan Auto Law. We were talking just now about the hands-free law in Michigan that's been in effect for 2 years. It is working. We want the numbers to be better. And one thing that we talked about is that teens are obviously our number one culprit, right? They're the ones who are behind the wheel and not paying attention. What do we need to do to get the young ones, the 16 to I think it's 25 age range, maybe it's a little different than that, to kind of get the message to sink in a little bit that you could take someone's life here?
Well,
Please go ahead.
yeah, well, 4th of July is this weekend, and there's going to be a lot of kids on the road. There always is a lot of kids on the road. So one thing that we can do is we can tell our kids to go to Michigan Auto Law's #SafeDriveSummer and participate in our campaign and tell our kids that they can sign up and they can take the pledge to drive safely and in return win possibly $250.
Okay, so there's an incentive behind it. I don't want to sound callous, but teenagers are going to do what they want to do unless we kind of give them a reason,
Absolutely.
right?
You have to be at least 14 years old. So if you're not an adult, you have to ask your parents. But if you go on our website and you go to #SafeDriveSummer and you sign up and you take the pledge, it's a very simple pledge to drive safe and not text and drive and really do what you're supposed to do on the road. You can win $250. 2 people will win $250 in September when the drawing takes place, and then we will match both of those $250 gift cards that those people are going to get to the Kiefer Foundation, which is a terrific cause.
So from your perspective, in terms of awareness for especially the younger drivers, is it better to get angry and yell, or do you try to use the emotions and talk your story and Mitchell's life? Or what do you think resonates with them?
I think it's multifaceted. I think we always say the laws are foundational. It has to be illegal. And if you can think of it as sort of analogous to drunk driving in sort of the 80s and 90s, I mean, that became through legislation and through Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, it became just a bad behavior that nobody allows. Today, most young people wouldn't get behind the wheel being drunk, but they will look at their phone behind the wheel.
So we have to add a stigma to it.
Exactly. So it has to be, it has to be cool to be safe, right? So we think things like these contests, like using safe drive apps through your insurance company. I mean, most people don't know it. They can download an insurance app, a safe driving app, save 20% on their insurance, and become a safer driver. It's kind of a no-brainer. So we encourage people to do that and to use the technology. The technology that's distracting us can actually be the technology that can save us.
Sure.
Using things like the focus mode and do not disturb mode in your
They're there for a
iPhones.
reason.
Exactly. And if we can continue through activities like this, and thank you for allowing us to talk about it, create the awareness. We should also shout out to the state police, because what we find around the country is the effectiveness of these laws, it comes down to 2 things: the awareness campaign and the enforcement campaign. So this is a great example of awareness.
A real deterrent, right.
And I would just also add, we call this period the 100 deadliest days for a reason. The period between Memorial Day and Labor Day, traffic crashes and fatalities typically go up about 15% around the country. And by the way, the 4th of July weekend is historically the most dangerous weekend of the year.
Is it really?
So we really encourage people to take this serious. As we always say, when you're behind the wheel, put the phones down, and I'll use my prop here.
There you go.
And just drive. That's our message. And
we are almost out of time, but I do want to ask you one more quick question. You talked about enforcement in the 34 states, I think you said you've got this, where enforcement is up. The numbers do go down, right?
Absolutely, and it's we have to be careful because it's not extremely sticky. We've seen some states like Georgia that were 20% in the first 6 months. Enforcement waned a little bit, and it kind of went back, not as bad as it had been previously, but it does slip back. So we have to keep the enforcement up in every state if we want to be effective.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you again for continuing to share your story. I know it can be difficult at times, but Mitchell's legacy lives on through this.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Appreciate it.